The atmosphere in Moscow has shifted, and it's not subtle. For the first time in months, Russian officials aren't speaking with confidence. They're speaking with concern. Because Ukraine is demanding a weapon Russia has feared from day one, a weapon capable of reaching deep into the Russian heartland, the American Tomahawk cruise missile. And according to Ukraine's ambassador in Washington, talks with the United States are not just progressing, they are positive. That single word has rattled nerves from the Kremlin to the Russian Ministry of Defense. And for good reason. Tomahawks aren't symbolic. They're transformative. They fly low, they fly far, and they hit exactly what they're told to hit. If they enter the Ukrainian arsenal, the concept of a safe zone inside Russia essentially vanishes. But before we get deeper into what this means, let's step back to the moment this entire diplomatic storm began. When Ambassador Olha Stefanishina sat down for her Bloomberg interview, she didn't hide behind vague language or cautious phrasing. She said it outright. Ukraine is actively negotiating for Tomahawks and for a whole suite of long and short-range strike systems. She didn't say the talks were hopeful. She didn't say they were ongoing. She said they were rather positive. In diplomatic language, that's as close as you get to saying, "We're almost there, and Russia knows it." And while the ambassador spoke calmly, her words carried a message that Moscow immediately understood. Ukraine is no longer waiting for rescue. Ukraine is positioning itself to rewrite the battlefield. Now imagine the view from Russia's side of the border. For months, Ukrainian drones have been slipping past Russian defenses and striking targets more than 1,500 kilometers inside Russian territory. Oil refineries burning, petrochemical plants damaged, substations collapsing into darkness, regional airports forced offline. And remember, Ukraine did all of this without long-range American cruise missiles. If this is the damage Ukraine can inflict using home-built drones, what happens when a missile with a 2,500-kilometer range enters the equation? That question alone is enough to unsettle any government, especially one already nervous about how this war is drifting beyond its control. But here's where the story becomes even more tense. President Trump, throughout the past several weeks, has sent mixed and sometimes contradictory signals about this exact issue. One moment he says Tomahawks won't be effective unless the United States launches them itself. The next moment he hints that, "You'll find out soon. We're going to do some testing." The ambiguity created an opening, and Ukraine moved immediately to exploit it. Dozens of Ukrainian delegations have visited Washington, trying to secure financial packages, expand procurement pathways, and ensure the Tomahawk conversation doesn't disappear when the headlines shift somewhere else. Their strategy is clear: force the United States to confront the question, not avoid it. And so far, it's working. Meanwhile, Russia has been accelerating its own pressure. Drone swarms have been unleashed on Ukrainian cities. Missile strikes have targeted hospitals, energy hubs, rail routes, almost daily. And Ukrainians are preparing for yet another winter where the lights may not stay on. When asked about the constant attacks, Ambassador Stefanishina didn't flinch. She said Ukraine can survive this winter, and even the next one. But she added something that struck a deeper truth. Survival does not mean it is right. That line reveals everything. Ukraine is no longer focused on hanging on. It's focused on taking control. Now let's talk about why Tomahawks matter so much. If Ukraine receives long-range American cruise missiles, Russia loses the one advantage it still believes it has: the distance between its war machine and the battlefield. Factories in the Urals, refineries near Moscow, rail depots connecting Siberia to the front, all of them suddenly fall into the crosshairs. And Russia knows this. That's why the Kremlin's reaction was immediate and emotional. Russian officials warned that Tomahawks would severely damage relations. Foreign Ministry spokesmen accused the United States of provocation, and state media flooded the airwaves with the same message: Ukraine must never be allowed to acquire these weapons. Fear speaks loudly when the stakes are high. But perhaps the most revealing moment came from a U.S. defense expert who said something that cuts right to the heart of the situation. If Ukraine gets Tomahawks, Russia has no safe zone left. That isn't alarmism. It's simple math. A missile with a 2,500-kilometer range erases the concept of deep Russia. And the Kremlin knows that once their vital infrastructure becomes vulnerable, their ability to sustain this war collapses faster than their frontline positions did early in 2022. So yes, the panic in Moscow is real, and it's growing. Ukraine wants Tomahawks. Negotiations are moving forward. Russia is already reacting, and winter is approaching fast. Which brings us to the question that matters most. If Ukraine gets these missiles, does the balance of the war finally shift? Or are we stepping into a far more dangerous chapter? I want to know your view. Share it in the comments. I read every one of them. And stay tuned, because the moment Washington or Moscow makes a move, you'll hear it here first.